Welcome and thank you for listening to the Muses of the Crystal Lotus.
Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Muses of the Crystal Lotus Shop. My name is Shauna.
I'm Jeannie.
I'm Tina.
And I'm Stephanie. And today we're going to continue our conversation from last week. We talked about depression, but we're going to kind of put a spin on it a little bit and incorporate more conversation around self-compassion and permission to feel and perception or perspective. Because in being able to be open-minded and aware of situations can actually help change the feelings that we experience and the negativity. So I thought it was nice today. Miss Tina shared a poem with us a couple weeks ago, right? That I'm sure you've probably seen, but if you haven't, we're going to read it to you on the internet. That really just kind of is a really good start into our conversation today. So this poem's called Pretty Ugly, and I'm going to read it. Okay? So when you read the poem at face value, it reads, "I'm very ugly, so don't try to convince me that I am a very beautiful person, because at the end of the day, I hate myself in every single way. And I'm not going to lie to myself by saying there's beauty inside me that matters. So rest assured, I will remind myself that I am a worthless, terrible person, and nothing you say will make me believe I still deserve love, because no matter what, I'm not good enough to be loved, and I am in no position to believe that beauty does exist within me. Because whenever I look in the mirror, I always think, am I as ugly as people say?" Mm-hmm. Now, when I first read that, I was like, damn, this is harsh. This is a harsh poem. Like, yes. I was like, why would someone write something so negative?
Because that's how people perceive you sometimes. And if you hear it enough, you start to believe it.
It's not how they perceive you, it's how you perceive yourself.
Yes, but even if you don't see yourself that way, if people are downing you enough, eventually you start to believe it.
That's true.
Okay, and then you start downing yourself. And then you start seeing yourself through their eyes rather than through your own heart. So I can see where that happens.
And sometimes we have to realize that when people display that about you, it's typically something within them that they haven't
don't
healed
like
yet.
about themselves.
Right, and so they kind of take it out on you.
Yes.
When there's really some internal work that they need to work on.
Misery loves company.
Yes, misery loves company. I had a shirt when I was a young lad. Or lass.
There's something you haven't told us.
It had the grumpy dwarf on it from the Seven Dwarfs, and it said "Misery loves company." And I thought it was a cute shirt, but that's the
it's the truth, though.
The truth.
When you don't like something about yourself, you're going to see that in other people.
They're like a mirror to you.
Yeah, so you don't feel so alone. But everybody is beautiful if you just allow yourself to believe that.
So then, at the very bottom of this poem, it says, "Now read bottom up." So let's read it from the bottom up. "Am I as ugly as people say? Because whenever I look in the mirror, I always think beauty does exist within me. And I'm in no position to believe that I'm not good enough to be loved. Because no matter what, I still deserve love. And nothing you say will make me believe that I'm a worthless, terrible person. So rest assured, I will remind myself there is beauty inside of me that matters. And I'm not going to lie to myself by saying I hate myself in every single way. Because at the end of the day, I am a very beautiful person. So don't try to convince me that I'm very ugly." Completely different.
Completely different, and that's, if you take the negativity and turn it to a positive, you will sooner or later start to believe that you are as beautiful and love yourself as other people see you, regardless of what's coming out of their mouths.
Yes. That's a perspective.
Usually if someone is depressed and in that I'm ugly mood, okay, if they see someone with a lot of beauty, they're going to try and knock it out of them.
That's jealousy.
That comes from jealousy. It comes from seeing things in other people that you want, but you don't know how to get. So, what do you do in a case like that? Do you figure out if it's something in you that they're seeing in themselves that they don't like? Or is it something in you that they don't see in themselves and they want to make you feel bad too?
So this opens the door for the topic of self-compassion and being able to really give yourself permission to be kind to yourself.
Yes.
I found an article published before this episode, just trying to, see what some of the literature says. And there's a psychology journal that had published a little bit about self-compassion. And so self-compassion has 3 components to it. It's not just, the word compassion, self-love, that's what we take it at face value. But there's really 3 components that make up self-compassion. The first one is self-kindness, and that's pretty self-explanatory. But as the paper writes, self-kindness is a kind attitude towards the self in painful moments rather than harsh self-criticism and self-degradation. Now, I don't know about you, but I have struggled with the self-kindness.
I think we all have at one point.
But why?
And that's something that
You're one of the most beautiful people I know.
Well, it goes beyond, like, whenever, say, something happens in my business and I'm not exceeding my business goals, for example, then my self-critical side will come in and say, well, you're not doing this right, or you're not doing that right, or you don't know enough, or you're not smart enough, or, what I mean?
You're always your worst critic.
We are. And I think that's part of the barrier behind giving ourselves that self-kindness is we are our biggest critic. We are always that first person. And then you have to ask yourself, how much of the self-criticism is constructive? Because there is some good criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And then how much of it is destructive? And how do you know the difference between the two?
You just go through that scenario in your head again, I would think. But consciously so. And you look at it as, okay, you're not good enough. I am good enough. I have the education. I have been doing this. So, okay, that's not constructive criticism.
So,
you didn't finish it on time. You let this get in your way.
mm-hmm.
Okay, that's constructive criticism,
Right.
Because you're allowing your focus to shift.
It's being more logical as opposed to reactive.
Yes.
Because a lot of those self-criticism thoughts that we tend to have are actually limiting beliefs.
Or self-sabotaging.
Or self-sabotaging.
Yes.
And limiting beliefs are something that we are limitations that we put on ourselves based on specific beliefs, whether it's things that we've learned in our childhood or things that we've picked up from other people and put on ourselves.
The training of peers.
The training of peers.
Yeah.
But then we hold that to ourselves as a form of criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to sit down logically and say, okay, I'm not good enough. Well, why? Why do you think that you're not good enough? If you don't have a valid answer, and I don't really think there is a valid answer to that one for anybody, regardless, then your logical mind should be able to say, okay, that's a limiting belief, and that has no place here.
But a lot of people don't recognize that limiting belief.
Right.
They don't recognize the blockages that puts up, or the limitations that it puts on you when you're trying to do something. When I first went into business, it was all about, okay, I can do the accounting, I can do the marketing, I can do the promotions, I can take care of the website. you know, I didn't want to do social media like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, because I think there's too much junk on there.
Mm-hmm. And there is.
But I was constantly asking myself, are you sure you can handle this? Are you sure you can do this? Do you really think that you have enough knowledge to do this? And I finally just decided that, okay, yes, I do think I have enough knowledge to do this.
If not, you know people who do.
And if it gets to a point where I don't, if I need to hire an accountant, I'll hire an accountant.
Ask for
If
help.
I need to hire a business manager, I'll hire a business manager.
Mhm.
You cannot be afraid to ask for help in any part of your life.
That's a good one. I think there's a lot of people that are afraid to
Yes.
ask for help.
Mhm.
It doesn't make you weak. All it does is show you that you have enough common sense to know if you're in over your head. You have resources out there that you've probably never tapped because you didn't want to appear weak. Well, everybody cannot be 100% perfect all the time. You cannot have all of the knowledge in the universe at all, because there's always something to learn. So when you reach a point where you just admit, I can't do this, I need help,
Mhm.
that's when you move to get help. If you don't, you're going to have those self-limiting thoughts day after day after day, and it's going to wear you down.
And that's kind of like we talked about last week with depression and being able to go see a
Yes.
talk therapist. You know, there's a lot of people that when you say, have you maybe reached out to a therapist, they get offended immediately.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
why do you think
I'm
that
not
I need?
crazy.
Right,
Exactly.
right,
I'm
right.
not crazy.
But in reality, you know, that question is not a I think you're crazy question. That's a why would you not expend the resources that are available to you to take care of yourself when you know that there are things that you can't handle?
Most people apply stigmas to that.
They do.
And it's
And
not.
it's hard to come over. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's not a thing that you can't handle. It's more of you may not know how to handle it.
Right.
And someone else may give you insight as an option to look at to approach it in a different manner.
Right. Therapy, they're unbiased majority of the time. When you find a really good therapist that focuses on talk therapy, not that I have a problem with any other forms of
You don't
therapy.
have problems with talking.
I don't have a problem with talking, not at all.
Couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
I sometimes have a problem with talking because I'd rather be a listener.
Well, that's true. That's very true. That's very true.
I think sometimes all people really need is just to have some quiet time with a sounding board.
Yes.
It's just get it out there. Usually, if you've got a problem like that, if you talk about it, you just put it all out there to somebody who will listen and actually hear what you're saying.
You're getting it out
You're
of yourself.
sorting out the answers yourself by doing that.
A lot of time, that's the way it goes. I mean, just to be able to talk things through and have someone listen, you can work out your own. Oh, well, I
Even
think
if they don't
that
comment.
might work, you know. And a lot of the times, we have our own answers hidden deep within. But being able to hear it out loud, to talk it to somebody who's just listening and hear it out loud, we can find those answers from within ourselves.
Burying it deep within yourself and not expressing it, that builds up over time. Towards like finally when it does break, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back and it all comes out. I'm guilty, okay? That's why I'm saying that. I'm very guilty for that. That my mom used to say, I hate when you do that. You don't get mad at the time, but you let everything build up and then it's like a volcano just erupts. So
And I think that all of us at one point or another has gone through that.
Yes. And things just kind of build up and build up.
but you can't keep it buried because it will just eat away inside. If you get it out of you, you'll be much better off.
Yes. Now, Jeannie,
Mhm.
do you have any limiting beliefs?
I have a lot, but I'm working on getting through those.
Yeah.
And that's part of the creative expressions. And I mean, my artwork is, I used to think that my artwork was mediocre at best.
It's really not, but that's just my opinion.
But
I have
then,
no artistic creativity whatsoever.
well, after I got into doing more and more of it, and I realized that it's not mediocre. It's my vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's my expression.
Shameless self-promotion.
This is not mediocre. This is amazing.
Yes. When she said it that way, I knew where she was going.
I couldn't paint that if I wanted to, you know. So
Though it's yours.
I couldn't
Maybe
paint that if I wanted to either, because I'm just not that talented.
that's what the paint by numbers are for.
Exactly.
True.
And even then, I found a way to mess those up, unless it's on my phone. So.
Everybody has some kind of a craft or an outlet that they used when they were kids.
Mhm.
Whether it was changing out the cards on the spokes of the bicycle, or finding pretty things to put on the handlebars,
Making mud
Or-
pies.
making mud pies, drawing pictures.
I was never good at
Doodling.
drawing.
You know, for me, my creative outlet is sewing. I love to sew.
I can't do that either.
I can do that
You
either.
can too, because I taught you how.
Oh, I did it in hardback, and I
My
sewed
sewing
the
machine
back
is broken.
to the front of my
And
gown.
you haven't
Okay?
brought it in for me to
So-
fix. That's off subject. Let's go.
We digress.
But
We digress.
anyhow, with the creativity that I express, I learned that my expression on canvas is my vision and my therapy all in one. And that it's up to nobody else to appreciate it but me.
Oh,
If-
it's beautiful.
So,
Well, I didn't really learn what really made me happy in creativity till I was more of an adult, because that's when I learned how to make jewelry,
Mhm.
and I found that's something I absolutely love.
Oh, your jewelry is gorgeous too.
Thank you. But the way it actually got me started is I went to take a pendulum class with a friend of mine who wanted to take it, but she didn't want to do it by herself. So I said, okay. But the lady who was teaching the class was also a beader. So one of the things she had us do was make our own pendulums. And so that's how I got started with making the pendulum. Then I made another person's pendulum because she didn't want to do it in class. So I did hers too. I did too. And it started me on that journey, and I evolved from there, from pendulums to bracelets, then earrings. Show yours. This one?
yes.
Yes, that's my pendy bracelet. You can't really see it too well.
Take it off, show.
This is one of my
Take it off,
things.
I'll stick it up there.
Okay, hang on, I'm trying.
She says, I will show everyone.
But here's the question I have for you. I know everybody has creativity inside them. Okay. This is the pendulum bracelet that she made.
Gorgeous.
And this one is
Labradorite.
labradorite. I can't see.
I made this one for myself. I was actually making it for the store, and I said, nah, I'm going to keep this one. This one's mine. But you just put it on like a bracelet.
But does it relax you
Yes, it does.
when you're doing the beading?
Yes, it does.
Does it?
It's
just
kind of
help
like a
to calm you?
mindfulness. It's kind of like a mindfulness. Almost into a meditative
That's what I was
state of
looking
time.
for.
Mm-hmm.
So
There you go. Did
on
I
that-
lead me very well to that?
on that, there's two parts that I want to touch on. The first is I had listened to a podcast, I believe it was last year, but it was a doctor that was talking about how he wouldn't treat his patients until after he prescribed them childhood creative outlets.
Mm-hmm.
What did you like? One of the best stories he said in the episode was he had this man come in. Him and his wife were having hard times. He was, experiencing like cardiovascular disease, and he was really sick. And so he goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Well, what do you like to do?" And the guy is, "What do you mean? I work. I'm a doctor. I work all the time. I go home. I'm exhausted.
Go to bed.
I go to bed." And he goes, no. He says, what brings you joy? What is something that you absolutely love to do? And the guy said, well, I used to play with trains. And the doctor said, okay, fine. 15 minutes a day. That's all. 15 minutes a day, go play with your trains. And the guy looked confused. He said he went on his way. And he didn't see the guy back for like 6 months or some long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then he passed the guy in a grocery store. And he said, "Hey man, where you been? You know, I was expecting you to come back. You missed your follow-up appointment." And the guy says, "Ma'am, you would not believe. I started out with 15 minutes a day just thinking that this was some bull baloney, you know, what is this going to possibly do?" And what it did instead is it ignited this flame of pure joy and energy and passion, something that he hadn't felt for a long time. And it had gradually increased from 15 minutes to 30 minutes, from 30 minutes to an hour. And this guy had remodeled one of his rooms in his house and brought out all of his train stuff and bought more and was creating and selling, and it was just so much that essentially all of the problems he had when he went to the doctor got better. Just because he spent time doing something he really liked to do.
And that's why when we advise people, okay, you're stressed out, you're tense, when we advise people, take 15 minutes just for yourself.
Yes.
Whether it's a bath or
Painting.
meditation or painting.
Or jewelry.
It doesn't
Whatever.
matter what it is. Whatever it is, if it gives you joy,
Do it.
do it. 15 minutes a day.
Yeah.
What's 15 minutes?
In 24 hours, as Arnold Schwarzenegger says, you have 24 hours in a day. I don't know how his accent, I suck at that. But anyways, my husband does it really good. But you have 24 hours in a day.
Yes.
What is 15 minutes?
Exactly.
What is 15 minutes?
Now, I devil's advocate here. I get up, I get my kids off to school, I plan out dinner, I get myself dressed, I go to work, my husband goes to work, I come home, I have to pick up the house, get lunch or snack ready for the kids coming home from school, start dinner. I don't have time for 15 minutes. Okay? When you finish dinner and the kids have gone to bed and the hubby is sitting in his chair watching his TV show, go find a quiet place and just sit for 15 minutes. Think about what you liked doing when you were a child. What gave you joy? Was it penning junk in a diary or
Reading.
just
Reading. That's a good
letting your heart out in a diary? Reading a book? Any kind of book.
At what point, I think I said this in the last episode, but at what point do we say that I'm enough to spend that much time, just 15 minutes? At what
I am
point
worth it.
do we say
Yes.
I am worth 15 minutes of time for me?
Even if it's just, I've gotten addicted to this little thing on my cell phone. It's called Paint by Number. And seriously addicted, okay? Because when I am doing that, I can still go through my thoughts of what's going on the next day and what has to be done, but I'm relaxing because it's not something that takes a lot of concentration, but it just calms you.
Now that's playing on what Tina said with mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So mindfulness is actually one of the 3 components to self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And the article that I found says mindfulness means holding suffering in a balanced awareness without being completely absorbed by negative feelings. So it's being conscious, of what you are feeling, whether it be the stressors of the day, the stressors coming up, some, anxiety or, from the past, being mindful and holding those in the front of your brain, but being aware of them as these are negative emotions. These are negative emotions I don't want to feel. Let's work through them in a balanced awareness to where we have the power to take them from negative into positive.
Okay, it's kind of reminding of me, like when I was painting my office here, I got so upset. I'm a little short chip, so I could not, even on a step stool that I had.
What's your language, woman?
I'm sorry.
Family show.
Sorry.
We'll put the little E beside the episode. The little explicit thing.
Yeah, well, trust me, I can be worse. But anyway, I was like, I could not reach the top 2 inches of painting my office all the way around. Could not reach it. So I got upset at that, and then trying to move that desk. My desk is a monstrosity, and I could not budge it by myself. I even had someone try to help me move it, not budging. So I was so frustrated. By the time I got home, I ranted, and this is not like me, but I ranted on Facebook. I mean, literally, I ranted about it. Let it out. And then the next day, I'm like, okay, I got that out of me. All right, now what can I do to fix it? So I started going through and come up with a lot of resolves. One, I had to go buy a screwdriver to unbolt that desk. Man, let me tell you, I still took 3 people to move it. And I bought a taller step stool to reach the top of the walls. So my room is now done and everything, but I had to completely explode and just throw a fit, basically.
So my question would be, what were you holding in leading up to that
My frustration and
that
anger.
caused you to explode?
Because I was so frustrated because I couldn't accomplish my goals. I couldn't do what I needed to do. And at that point, I was so angry, I couldn't see the light at that end of the tunnel. So I just blew up. And then after I had that rant, I stepped back and said, okay, now that I had that rant, it's out of me. What can I do to fix it?
Is there anything that you could have done to prevented the explosion?
No, not at that point.
See, that's the powerful
no.
thing. That's the powerful thing, is because a lot of the times when we do have those, it doesn't seem like this is working for me, and then on top of that, this isn't working, or my cell phone batteries died, my laptop batteries died, I don't have my chargers, I'm stuck without this stuff, I'm not going to be able to accomplish my work, and then I trip over a cord, and that just kind of sets you over the top. So then the question is, what do you do when you start feeling like there's negative stacking up against you to manage that, to prevent that explosion?
What I do is I sit down in the chair and take 3 or 4 deep breaths and say, okay, where'd this start at? Okay, this wasn't really about someone leaving the cup in the coffee maker instead of throwing it away.
She would pull up the coffee pot.
You have to understand that a lot of times,
I feel so attacked.
because it's not just you, okay? Shout out to Asen. No, it's usually something deeper than that, okay? You started off with a bad day because you just found out that your water bill went up by $50
Or
or
you
something.
found you had a water leak and it went up to $400.
Yes, okay?
Jeez.
And it's like, okay, all I can do is fix this, move on. But you don't. That anger is still inside you because, one, you didn't catch it sooner, or you just want to go on a rant about how utility companies just keep raising and raising and raising, but you don't say anything. And then you come in and you see, okay, I need a cup of coffee. You go to make the coffee and somebody didn't remove the cup, which is the little trash can is right there.
You go
And
to
it's
make
like,
a cup of tea and there's a coffee cup
wow.
in it.
Yes, that really sucked.
Coffee flavored
Um,
tea.
Yeah, I thought all I had to do was just hit the water and there would be my beautiful sample of sacred chakra tea.
Shout out to people with Keurig machines that know the troubles and tribulations of leaving the K-cup in the machine when you're
Yes.
trying to do things.
It didn't taste
I don't have
very
that
good
problem.
with dark magic in it, I'm telling you.
Since I don't drink coffee, I don't have that problem, right?
But anyway, it's usually something that
Okay.
starts much earlier,
Yeah, it builds
and
up.
then it builds up. And
That's
then
like
it
what my
builds up.
mother used
The
to say.
straw that broke the
Camel's back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
And
you
that
know,
would accelerate it
if
pretty
you
quick.
go
that
back
way,
to
though.
where it starts, sit down for a minute, take a few deep breaths. Okay, where'd this start at? I woke up in a good mood. Why? And then you can find those negative thoughts that you've been having or internalizing, and you just decompile them.
And there's another component to that too. There's a lot of times when you have those negative things
I'm shifting because my back hurts.
and you don't, it's not that you internalize them, but you hold on to them instead of processing that moment. So, Tina, oh my gosh, this something, happened, so and so did this to me, and I'm so mad that they talked about me, blah, 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 blah. And then I see Jeannie 2 hours later, Jeannie, oh my God, let me tell you about so and so, talks about blah, 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 blah. And then 6 hours later, I finally see Shauna. Shauna, can you believe? Let me tell you what I did. And so you're just still holding on to it. And the more that you repeat it to other
the
people,
angrier you get, and the more negativity you build up.
exactly, and you can't let it go. The more it's like a snowball rolling downhill. The more you feed into it, the bigger the snowball gets. There's a lot of that, and it lowers your vibration. It lowers your mood and your mindset, and that side of it, aside from internalizing it, just not being able to let it go at all, process, feel, etc., then that can have the same effect. So there is a third part to self-compassion.
Okay.
And the third part is called common humanity. And this is a big one. Especially on the conversation of depression. Okay. So common humanity refers to framing one's suffering as part of being human and as an experience that connects the self to others rather than isolating oneself from them. So when we talked about depression last week, one of the things that we mentioned was that you tend to feel alone.
Yes.
You tend to feel lonely and you want to isolate. The thought of hanging out with anyone, the thought of, you want to, but you isolate yourself with your emotions. But common humanity, in the purpose of self-compassion, is knowing and understanding that you are not alone in the experiences that you're going through. And this is part of breaking the mental health stigma, because we always want to, not talk about mental health. We want to pretend it doesn't exist for some reason, and then if it does, there's something seriously wrong with somebody. But the fact is, humans experience emotions. And I had last year, and this is a little deep, and I'm going to share it to an extent. I had an experience that took me and my mental health into a deep depression, where you ladies remember I isolated from everyone. I wasn't within the shop for 2 months. It was a good period. And even then, when I came in, I still wasn't processing my emotions.
You try to run from us.
I did. And you ladies really did help more than anything. Just
We
being
wouldn't
able
let
to talk and to get it out. But what helped the most is hearing from you and from you and from you that the experience that I had, although we didn't have the exact same, we had similar. And that helped me feel not so alone in this world where I couldn't talk to anyone with what I was going through.
A lot of people fall into that, though. They think that they're all by themselves. They'd like to get help, but then somebody might call them crazy.
Put them in a nut house.
Or they'll be told it's all in your head. Well, of course it's all in your head. That's what depression is.
You're overreacting.
Oh gosh,
You're
Yeah,
paranoid.
buddy.
Yes, I'm tired of hearing it. I heard that one all kinds last year. I'm tired of hearing it. You need to get over it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had to say, like last week when we talked about, and I told you about my experience of someone coming down and giving me that hug, because that's really all I was asking for. Is like, I can just use a hug, and I felt someone come down and wrap their arms around me. I don't know if it was a God, an angel, or if it was my ancestors' family, okay? But at that point, I realized something, and I rolled over, and of course, I see nothing. And I thanked them, because it made me realize that I'm never really alone. They're always around me. And that I was loved.
Yes.
And so that helped me come out of it, knowing that somebody was there. I couldn't see them, but I knew they were there.
And so that is an aspect of the common humanity from more of a spiritual plane. Because you were able to identify that there are always spirits and angels, ancestors around
Guides.
I had
Whether
I had
animal or human.
a
There's
dream,
all kinds of guides. Trust me. I
back
have
in
to see.
May, where my grandmother came to me in my dream And she had Alzheimer's, so by the time I became of age, I couldn't hold conversations with her. She just didn't have the mind capacity to even recognize who I was. But she came to me in this dream, clear. And she told me that she was proud of me. And at that moment, I knew, just like you, that I was being watched by my angel. And she was always with me. And she sees everything that I do. And that within itself, as much as it chokes me up, it may not, these are happy tears, I promise. But that was when I felt, even though I know I'm not alone, I've got a wonderful husband, my family, my mom, my dad, my brother, all of you ladies. But there was just that something else, that extra feel good that told me that even when I feel alone, I'm not alone.
You can physically be alone, but you're not, because you're surrounded by that. And I was never afraid. I didn't have the least bit of fear or anything like that. What I felt was love, overwhelming love. And that helped me come right out of it, because I knew then that not having that fear and just knowing that they were there to help me, and they were trying to give me that hug that I wanted so bad. And that meant a lot. It still does. It's been years, but I've never forgotten.
Yeah, there is another type of depressive person that I'll probably get shot for even bringing this up, but they're in a depression. They know they're in a depression, and they don't want help. They want to stay in that depression because they get a lot of attention from people. Oh, are you okay today? Is there anything I can do for you? Oh, my house needs cleaned. So this is the kind of
Would that work?
personality.
She just,
You'd be surprised.
Sorry, that just, since I've had my strokes, that has come right out,
Okay. Tried to help a friend who was so depressed and just, I didn't know exactly how to reach her other than to let her talk to me. She wasn't talking. And when I said, is there anything I can do to help? My house needs cleaned and I haven't started dinner yet. I'll take care of it. You rest. And I cleaned her entire house, cooked her dinner, fed her kids, fed her husband, fed her. And I said, okay, I need to go home and take care of my family now. Okay. I said, okay, what is it that you need? Suppose you could clean up the mess? No, you can get up off your butt and clean up the mess. I've done enough. The more you waller in it, the worse it gets. But there are some people that want the attention.
They can't get it any other way. That's true with Reiki in itself. Some people don't want to be healed because then they don't get the attention they may otherwise not receive at all.
Yeah,
that's very true.
So
then,
to people like that, I ask you to look deep inside of you and see if you're harboring a depression just for intention. If it's really that serious, you really need to see a doctor. You need to see a therapist. You need to come out of that shell and see that your life can be beautiful, because when you're just living in negativity, that's all you're ever going to have is negativity.
like attracts like.
Yep.
And so with that, the rest of the study, what they found was that practicing any of the three, it doesn't even have to be all three, but any of the three aspects to self-compassion, whether it be the mindfulness, the self-kindness, or the common humanity, being able to experience one of those helped increase and shift the perspective to giving ourselves more permission to experience self-compassion. And so,
but there's also that underlying thing. I have to want to.
you have to,
Yes.
you have to put
You
forth
have to want to.
that-
You have to work for it.
whether it be, just simply logically or trying to logically think through the self-criticism, or, reaching out to a therapist to where you can experience that common humanity and know that you are not alone and there's someone there that could be a soundboard for you. Or the mindfulness, getting into a form of creativity that can, allow you to think things through. Journaling is amazing for being able to just get it all out on paper and then burn it. So no one has to read it. If you're, I hear that a lot. I don't want to journal because if I journal and, so-and-so finds it in my house, then I'll be so ashamed. Burn it.
Burn it.
Get it out and burn it.
Purge it
And
and
it's
release
gone.
it.
Because then you got it out and then you made it disappear. You don't have it to worry about anybody else getting a hold of it. But that process within itself lets you critically think through your emotions.
Well, the smoke alone will carry it to the heavens for them to resolve it for you.
Ooh, I don't know that.
Yeah, that's a universal thing. That's why when I tell people who have a lot of trauma in their past to journal it down, put it all in a notebook, every gory detail, every hard emotion. Don't reread it, just write it. When you're done, go back, look at it as a judge. Okay, no emotion. It's just the facts of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you got a positive out of that, take it. If you don't, go to the next one. When you're done, close it up, take it someplace, dig a little hole, burn it. When you're burning it and that smoke is going up, you are releasing all that negativity from your mind. Excuse me. But you're also asking the universe to bring that back as positivity so that you can move forward past these things. Bury it up, walk away, don't look back.
I gotta admit, journaling, releasing it like that helped me tremendously too last year. Tremendously.
It's a hard thing to go through, and sometimes it can take you months
Many times.
mentally to get through it.
Many times, yes.
But once you've released all of that and gotten rid of it, you're going to notice so many new creative ideas coming in and more energy and a better outlook. And because you're not dwelling on what happened.
Yeah.
What are these things that are self-limiting?
Yeah.
Right?
I was
and that's what it is.
driving down the road just the other day. Ooh, what a beautiful day. Look at that sky. Music on the radio. And then a thought came into my head. Wow, do you remember where you were last year?
Mm-hmm.
This time last year, remember where you were? And I said, self. And I know I was talking to myself because I was in my own car and I was wearing my own clothes. I said, self, I'm in a way better place than I was last year. So thank you for bringing it up, but bye.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
I have gotten rid of this. It
Yeah.
cannot hurt me anymore, and
Yes.
it will not put roadblocks in the way
Yes.
of what I want to do, what
Exactly.
goals I want to reach.
Exactly.
Because that's what the ego does.
Mm-hmm.
The ego says, you remember when you screwed up? Remember that depression you were in?
Mm-hmm.
If you've gotten rid of all of that stuff, you can just say, hey, thanks for the reminder, but no, I don't remember it, and I'm moving forward.
Yep.
You may remember it, but you're not owning
Now, what you're going to be remembering from it
it. Is the
is
pain.
if you got a positive lesson from it. Most things that are traumatic or bad that happen to people, they hold on to the negative. They don't see any kind of positive
There is a lesson to be learned in
in
everything.
everything.
And you don't
Everything.
want to carry it forward into your next life either.
No, but I'll give you an example of a positive coming out of just about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say when you were young, you were abused, and how can there be anything positive that comes out of that?
Mm-mm-mm.
Okay, the positive that would come out of that is you know what it feels like. You know what kind of personality that person had.
Empathy.
And then you can turn around and help other people in that situation who don't understand.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Empathy. It gives you
Yes.
a different perspective that a lot of
Empathy
people
is the positive that comes out of it.
they don't experience.
Yes.
Now, one lesson that I was able to take away from last year, and I'm incorporating it into everything I do now, is we need to start talking about mental health.
Mhm.
Because a person never feels so alone until they can't find someone to talk about mental health without feeling judged. That's got to stop.
Yes.
Judgment on mental health has got to stop because we're human and we all go through problems.
Yes.
Everyone. There is not a perfect person on this world. You know?
There's not a perfect anything on this world. Even animals have mental health days.
My mom's cat's grieving with the loss of our dog. Bless its heart. But then you've got the other lesson that I was able to take away is how can I help my clients with mental health and stress and anxiety? Because you know what? You come to me, I want to lose 15 pounds. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm overworked, blah, 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 blah. What is your stress doing? What is your stress doing to yourself? Because if you don't address the stress part of it, then we're not able to address the rest of it.
That's right.
And so now I'm able to see things instead of focusing on health, nutrition, herbs, supplements, the standard blah-de-da.
Mhm.
There's a whole stress response there
Yes.
that really we have to break through that. Because anything else that we add to it, incorporating new foods, or trying this, or trying that, you're going to be like,
So can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? Moon milk.
yes, moon milk.
Moon milk is very calming.
Yes.
If somebody's going through a severely stressful tension, mini breakdown,
Yes.
I love moon milk. This is why I'm asking. What would you change up in mood milk? Mood milk. Moon milk.
Moon milk. I like that. We should go with that.
Moon milk to make it mood milk.
Well, what's nifty about that is the way that I make it right now
Mhm.
is perfect for the stress response.
Yes.
Because mood milk, our version, mood milk. It incorporates the milk base, which when I do it, I usually use almond milk because I have a sensitivity to dairy.
Mm-hmm.
But there's ashwagandha, which is the key component to the nervous system. So ashwagandha is an adaptogenic herb that helps balance the stress response. And it's one of the best. I will forever say ashwagandha is one of the best because if you're low, it'll help bring you up. But if you're high, it'll help bring you down. There are many adaptogen herbs that only work in one direction, they're unidirectional. Some of them, like licorice, for example, is really good to bring you up. So that's why people with high blood pressure have to worry about or have to use caution with licorice because it stimulates, it brings you up and it can increase your blood pressure. Licorice is typically good for people that are, chronic fatigue, things, down. Then there's holy basil, which holy basil is really good for when you're up, anxiety-wise, bringing you back down to a calmer state. Ashwagandha does both. And so that's the key component to our mood milk that we make here is the ashwagandha. And then the cinnamon and the turmeric that I add to it are just extra beneficial.
Turmeric is for inflammation.
Turmeric is really good for inflammation. It's an antioxidant. It's fabulous. It's a fabulous herb. So I use turmeric to help with that antioxidant properties and the anti-inflammatory. And then the cinnamon for the flavor, for one. But cinnamon also helps balance blood sugar. So there is a little bit of maple syrup. I only use maybe 1 tablespoon in my recipe. But that cinnamon will help balance the blood sugar in the end.
So if somebody knows that they're really getting stressed out and they're really going into that super tension, hypertension mode, if they just make themselves a cup of that, and take 10 or 15 minutes for yourself.
It is brewing it, making it, sitting and drinking it within itself is an experience.
Yes.
Romanticize your life. Romanticize making tea. That is, to me, that's one of the best things at night is, okay, I'm taking tea time. and I go in there and I boil my water and I put my little tea bag in my cup. And if it's something that I make, then I don't have the little quotes on it, but like yogi tea, they have the quotes on them. And I'll read the quote, and if it's really nice, I'll take a picture of it, put it on Instagram. It's my tea time. And then I'll pour it over, I'll smell it, I'll just take in the aroma and sit down and enjoy the flavor. That is an experience. And that
But
within
that's
itself is
also
calming.
Kindness.
Yes, and that's kindness because I'm taking that time. And that's, again, with the mood milk. You're taking that time to help your body. You're doing the experience, but you're also giving yourself nourishment, which is kindness. It is a form of kindness. Exactly.
But if you're taking it and sitting there for 15 minutes, smell it.
It
Taste
smells
it.
delicious.
Smell it. Taste it. Drink it. Breathe.
The
Now,
thing is, though, it's almost like you're assimilating all your senses.
Yes.
well,
That's
you know,
what
your
it does.
taste, touch, smell, hearing, mute. So all of that.
which is really good for anxiety. There's a lot of, you'll see a lot of things on the internet, but the 5 senses for anxiety, like if you're in a state of, anxiousness, borderline panic attack, to bring your awareness to the here and now by using your 5 senses, and that's something that tea time or mood milk time can do, because you get to experience the taste. Taste it. What does it taste like? What are the flavors? What are the smells?
Mhm.
What is the warmth in your hands? What's it look like? What's the color? Do you have, if you're brewing tea, what's the herbs look like in the bottom of your cup? Being able to utilize the sound of the teapot, being able to come back to the here and now by using your 5 senses is a great way to ground yourself.
So I guess we ought to do a shout out to England. Thank you, English, for the tea.
Well, I believe we are coming close to time.
Yes, we are.
So,
And since we have a meeting here,
yeah, meeting time. Okay. Well, thank you for listening to another one of our episodes of Muses of the Crystal Lotus. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, to leave them in the comment field. You can visit us on Facebook at CLSWV. I believe we have an Instagram too, at CLSWV. And also watch out for more on our website, www.clswv.com. Any closing remarks?
And come in and see us at 89 Old Main Plaza, St. Albans, West Virginia.
just look for the purple awning. See you later.
Thanks,
Have
guys.
a good day.
Thank you for listening to the Muses of the Crystal Lotus. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Just a reminder that this podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professionals. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. Consult your physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast. Under no circumstances shall the Crystal Lotus Shop, any guests or contributors to the podcast, be responsible for damages arising from use of this podcast. Until next time, healthy blessings.